First thing that I'm going to say on this show, you can indeed get a beer.
Be right back.
So, how you doing, any or everyone, all one viewer that's watching this right now? I kind of pulled a fast one on everyone and posted something very ad hoc based on a thread that uh, a very good um, YouTuber who is able to articulate his position beautifully, CapriciousBlackBox, had posted talking about the direction of his channel and some really awesome things, essentially touching on the idea of personal integrity. So that was the stepping stone for Mike, CapriciousBlackBox, Ozzy, and myself, Christopher Maute, doing this hangout. So I will do my best to monitor the comments so that we can include the people that are watching into what we're talking about. But I have to admit that I kind of get lost in good conversation, and I'm gearing up for a really good conversation because by maintaining personal integrity, we're also playing with the idea of while maintaining integrity and being kind of on the same page in certain respects, is there room in the landscape of talking about what we talk about for all of us? Because we all have very different styles and ways of approaching the very topic that we're all interested in, right? And it also kind of deals with how we police ourselves, and which is kind of the flip side of the coin of being stewards for each other's personal integrity. So, I think I've talked enough for the intro. Yes. Whew. The timing is perfect, Ozzy. Um, so I would like to welcome Mike, CapriciousBlackBox, for to this hangout, which really has no particular name to it other than 3 is the magic number. Oh yes, it is. It's the magic number. If anyone's familiar with Schoolhouse Rock, that'll hopefully uh, trigger some memories. How you doing, Mike?
Good, thank you.
And I also have Ozzy hanging out because based on previous conversations, or conversations previous to the thread that was started between Mike and I, he had mentioned having some really strong opinions that may be an awesome topic for a show, and he may have already expressed them on video, and if he did, he's going to re-express them because I believe there's something that he feels strongly about, and that is the idea of policing your own. And I use your own in quotes because you can't see me. I'm using air quotes. Whatever your own is, whatever in-group you identify yourself with, what is the value or detriment of holding people's feet to the fire when they do something that they should be called out on? You know, is it betraying to allow the people that are criticizing them a voice, or by criticizing them yourself, or otherwise? There's a lot of different topics we can have about this. So how you doing, Ozzy?
Very well. This was an interesting, and you're right. I went uh, if sort of extreme sort of are because they sort of go to discourse should be conducted. It didn't happen.
All right. I just need to ask you a question. I'm losing fidelity. My resolution is getting really, really bad. Am I coming through clear?
You're coming through loud and clear, although my image froze up for a few seconds there.
Okay, now you're coming through perfectly clear. So just to be selfish, Ozzy, could you please repeat what you said? Because the last time you said it, it was digitized, and I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, sure. You had said that I have some strong opinions on, and to qualify what's meant by having strong opinions on this, I have sort of some firm convictions about how discourse should be carried out. Not strong opinions in the sense that they're extreme opinions or anything like that. I think they're actually fairly commonsensical opinions about how discourse should be carried out in public, and And so I don't expect that to have my mind changed about these things, because these are sort of deep values that I've held for a long time. But anything can happen. I mean, I'm willing to have my mind changed in principle, but you know, a lot of people have been talking to me about this sort of, behind the scenes and in private messages and emails and stuff like that. And so far, no one's talked me out of these views yet.
Well,
so that's why I say I have strong opinions.
I think that they are strong opinions. I think that they are extreme when you compare them to what is most readily available when people choose to watch others engage in the kinds of conversations we try to engage in. Would you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, I kind of think so. I mean, I see a lot of that on my channel, where a lot of people are ready to get real raw and to get real rough, and they do, and they think that that's the only approach to take, and yet the same people don't, they're not on my case for trying to take a higher road. They seem to appreciate the value in that. And that's why I was wondering about, when I mentioned earlier about, is there room for every approach? Because some of these people feel like that's the only way to go, is to be very, very abrasive and very rude and very abrupt. Typically, they're more talking about posting comments rather than making content, but some of them can get pretty rude in hangouts and whatnot as well. And I think there's a difference too. We should maybe even differentiate a little bit between, as we were talking about policing our own, as it relates to something that's important to Ozzy, which is making sure that we're not putting forth our own bad arguments, and then just the general discourse, the tone of the discourse. I mean, I think there's sort of two different sides of the coin there.
Well, I also think that there's a difference between people who are content providers in the way that I think that you and Ozzy are, in the sense that you will record clips of yourself explaining something. You're putting out content, in a very explicit manner, whereas I'm putting out content, I guess, in a more implicit manner, in the sense that I'm not always championing what I think, but I'm trying to interview other people or have discussion panels where I engage other people's opinions into a discussion, where I'm still putting out content, but it's not like, I'm not saying, and being that I'm Chris Maute, of course I'm an atheist, and of course I think this, but let's talk about this instead. You know what I mean? So I mean, we're all three of us are putting out content in kind of different ways, because Ozzy is very familiar being on the Hangouts that I'm also a panelist on and sometimes the host of. Whereas you, Mike, I don't necessarily see you as much in the on-air Hangouts, on the shows that that promote an atheist or secularist or skeptic or rational thinking, or however you want to label yourself, position. Am I inaccurate in that?
No, I mean, I don't generally have a lot of time to do that anyway. And so most of my videos are made very spur of the moment, get an idea, 15 minutes to rub together, grab my iPhone or run out to the tree and squawk away for a few minutes, and then try to upload it. And so I think there is that style obviously has a lot to do with the difference. And it's interesting because in a lot of the ways you were mentioning, atheist, or sort of declaring what your position is. And I don't even actually self-identify that much as an atheist, to be honest with you. I think it does have more for me to do with trying to get a grasp on rational thought in whatever area that is. And I've gotten quite bogged down in the presuppositional apologetics stuff. It's really honestly not that important to me. And so I've tried to kind of wrench myself away from that and move to other topics, which I'm hoping to do very soon. But I would say I would categorize myself a little bit more that way, to just the rational thinking, rather than being too bogged down in the atheist-theist discussion. It's actually not that big of a deal to me.
Well, Ozzy, I want to uphold Mike's personal integrity in wanting to be considered a, just more of a rational thinker when it comes to this, as compared to having to choose a side with atheist, theist, because I want to promote everything that he does. So if I were to see him go change channels on me, so to speak, in such a way that he really deviates from how I'm understanding he wants the arc of conversation to go, what's the best way to do that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So I want to maintain the integrity. We're talking about personal integrity and policing others. If I were to disagree with something that Mike did,
right,
such that he changed channels, that's what I meant when I said change channels.
Right.
Like I didn't mean that technically, like he changes YouTube channels. I mean like metaphorically. He went from, I was watching NBC and now it's ABC. Like, what happened? This is something very radically different than what was on before. That's what I meant. So if he does something that I disagree with, and I think that he's not standing up to his own standards that he has declared in no uncertain terms, what is the best way to approach that, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, okay, well,
from your opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to sort of speak to this from my side of the theist-atheist divide. I'm not a skeptic or someone committed to rationalism because I'm an atheist. It's the other way around. I think that I am an atheist on the basis of upholding certain principles of rationality and skepticism, and that to me is the higher ideal. And I think atheism people tend to become agnostics and atheists who are beholden to certain values of rationality and skepticism. It's not that you're automatically an atheist if you hold these values high, hold to these particular values, and that you can't hold these values if you're a theist. That's absolutely not the case. But I have it's my sense that because theism and various religions and superstitions are not ultimately warranted on rational grounds, that anyone who's firmly committed to skepticism and rationality is going to tend towards atheism. And as such, for me, the enemy here is not mere theism. The fact that someone believes in a god or an afterlife or souls or karma or reincarnation or some woo ideas, I'm not particularly concerned with that. It's the enemy is irrationality and dogmatism. Those are the things that I worry about. So I worry more about certain kinds of theists than I do other kinds of theists. But mere theism by itself, I'm not particularly concerned about. There are plenty of rational theists that you can talk to and have a wonderful. I mean, look at the New Covenant group. I mean, you're not going to find a finer, more undogmatic, reasonable person than Bob Graves, and he's a theist.
Shout out to Bob Graves. I kind of want to tackle a little bit about what you're saying, because that again is a little radical when it's compared to, and Mike, I'm going to throw it back to you, the current state of the kind of dialogue that occurs when people attempt to talk about the religious landscape. I don't care that you happen to be a theist. What I do care is if you are spreading dogma on either side of the coin, which to me is the fringe edge of either side of the coin or each side of the bell curve. You know what I mean? So
before you toss this back to Mike, could I just sort of finish answering the question?
No way, no, Ozzy.
Absolutely not.
I'm long-winded.
Of course
there was all this preamble, so that my answer would make sense.
Right.
My view is the question is what if I saw Mike sort of, as I say, happen to be going off the rails or something, changing channels as you put it, and if I see that he's sort of deviating significantly from skepticism and rationalism, simply in the name of opposing theism, then I think, okay, well, I need to say something. Now, it doesn't mean I have to go out and make a response video. It doesn't mean I need to publicly shame him or scold him or wag my finger. I think that's actually a mistake. People do this to each other all the time, and I don't think that's a very good way to go about it. Sometimes we might have to do that, but rarely. I mean, Mike is someone I know through the online YouTube community, and so we've had some interactions. So I would just sort of say, hey, privately, what gives? I noticed this. It seems a little strident to me, and you try to do it that way. I think that sort of recenters people much better than a public shaming or scolding or sort of complete shunning and stuff like that. So I think policing should be understood sort of, as a kind of like the word policy. It's related to the word politeness. I don't mean sort of like a military police coming in there and sort of laying down the law on people. I don't think that's very productive at all. I think that galvanizes people to sort of stick to their guns, dig in their heels, and resist you, especially when it's done publicly. So you have to be gentle, you have to be polite, and you got to choose who you do it to. I wouldn't do it to someone I didn't know, but if I thought Mike was doing something, that was just, counterproductive to the ideals that he and I both purport to uphold, then yeah, sure, you need to say something. But quietly behind the scenes, you nudge people back, and I think that works much better.
Well, I love the fact that you were able to finish your thought and articulate that, because that you just provided like a wealth more of questions that I have. So I guess first things first and second things second. I am going to throw it back to Mike. What do you think about what Ozzy just said, where he's talking about the way that I'm hearing it? He's talking about the idea that if you have enough connections with people, right? And I'm kind of stretching here because this is how I'm filtering what Ozzy is saying. If you have enough connections with people in the area of interest, that is this hobby of ours, which is talking about these things, and somebody does start going off the rails or changing channels, you have more opportunities to nudge them in a way that upholds the very standards that we have for ourselves, where public shaming is not only a last resort, but like a final resort, I should say. So I guess what I'm saying is it kind of sounds like what Ozzy was saying supports ideas that I have, which go back to the original question I had for you, Mike, which was, whether you're a theist or an atheist, I could really care less. What I do care about is whether or not I can make a connection with you in such a way that we can have a really good human dialogue about the things that we may or may not disagree about. All right, I'm done talking.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the key to the whole thing is personal relationships, right? And it's difficult sometimes to build those through a box, right? But we do have the opportunity to build those, and sometimes it can be very strong. I've had some of the most wonderful things said to me through the internet, and so I value those relationships, and I think that's where we're also the most effective when we are trying to police one another, for lack of a better term. So and that's evidenced by how things go. I mean, when you don't know someone real well, then your options are much more limited. And of course, the better relationship you build with them, with mutual respect and mutual trust, then your options are much greater for sort of guiding them back in, corralling them back in if they start to go off the rails. And so, initially that's sort of what happened. I know Ozzy because he made a response video to a video that I'd made because he felt that I was going off the rails. And obviously you have a choice as to how to take that, but we didn't really have a relationship. I didn't really know who Ozzy was to any degree at that point, and I don't think he knew me that much. We certainly hadn't spoken. But now things are different, and I think his reaction would probably be different if he saw me going off the rails. I would imagine I'd probably get a couple of private pokes before it got that far. And so I think that's the wonderful thing about relationships, is it just gives us that many more tools to help one another. And because we become vested, then it's much more important when someone says, hey, you're going off the rails a bit, to really be introspective and go, wow, this is someone I really, really value and respect saying this to me. I better check this. I better check myself. And I think that's where the strength of that community is bolstered, is with actually building relationships.
I think that we are all on the same page right now to such an extent that if we go on, it'll seem like gratuitous backslapping.
Yep, yep.
Can we agree on that? I mean, so in sum, building a community is better than breaking one down. Building bridges are better than burning them. Relating to people as humans, regardless of their position on one particular topic, building relationships with humans is part of the human experience. It's what makes being a human awesome, and it's what's going to move the kind of conversations we have forward. So, does anyone disagree with what I just said?
No, but I would like to ask the question whether or not we think that there is room for a more abrasive approach by certain elements of the discussion.
I think that, okay, so here's where I'm going to pivot to some of the comments that have been made so far. So somebody mentioned, I find it mildly amusing that a hangout on policing our own is going on at the same time as somebody else's hangout, in which the purpose is to be as much a prick as possible. So apparently somebody else is having a hangout right now that whose style may be the 180 of exactly our style and the way that we're addressing this particular topic. So
probably way more fun too. Oh, wow.
It probably has thousands of viewers right now. You know what I mean? We're barely breaking the teens.
I don't know who this is, but guarantee that person's going to get more views.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I probably directed traffic to it by mentioning it. That's what,
yeah.
People are going to be Googling it now. So I guess that I'm just trying to create an environment to answer your question, Mike. And I don't know. I get yelled at. I think that Ozzy kind of gets yelled at, depending on the kind of show he's on for being affiliated with the New Covenant group. And I'm sure that there are times, Mike, when you get yelled at by people that maybe think that you take too soft an approach. I don't know. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just assuming.
Yeah, I've taken a little bit of heat for that at times, but I mean, my answer to that is, if you think you need to be more direct, then that's wonderful. You go do that. That's your style. That's not my style. I tend to treat it as though I don't want to say anything to anybody directly, whether it's through a video or even in the comments section, which I think the standards tend to be a lot lower in the comments section, that I wouldn't say to a neighbor. And so, that really limits a person in some ways. If you're going to get really vitriolic, I sort of feel like I need to still be able to say, hey, Joe, the next day, and still have a friendly relationship with them. That's just the standards that I hold myself to. But that doesn't mean that everybody has to do that. That's just me. And so if they feel that I'm being too nice, that's awesome. Then you go be a prick. I'm still gonna do what I do.
All right, but Ozzy, I'd like to talk to you about the fact that there are, in addition to benefits, there are also consequences to the kind of style that we have, right? The benefits are, in my opinion, and this is what I want to bounce off of you, the benefits are the more you show through your behaviors what your message is, right? Even though you might not have a predetermined agenda or message, for the sake of discussion, please work with me. And that message just might be a certain level of neutrality that facilitates, good dialogue. The more you show that in your actions, the benefit is that reputation precedes you, and I think that is the case for you, Ozzy, as well as you, Mike. Your style precedes you. When people know that Ozzy is talking, they know that there is integrity in what he says and that he's a reliable source, and I think that people feel the same way about you, Mike. So that is a benefit to walking the walk that you talk. You know what I mean? So the downside is, the people that like to argue want to argue with you about the things you don't want to argue about.
Yeah, I got to say, I don't get that much. I don't get much hate mail, and I don't get a lot of.
It's because everyone loves you, Ozzy.
Well, no. I mean, I get some pressure from people, but I mean, it's it's fairly gentle, but I think it's because I think in conversation I am myself fairly gentle, and people feel that it would be kind of over the top of them if they just sort of, if they just sort of leap over the fence and lunge at me. They're going to look unhinged. So they're not going to do that in public, and they don't even do that in private. I mean, I get some, the pressure that I get back on this, and I mean, it's considerable. That is, it's consistent. It's fairly steady, but I feel like the people who are doing this, they are trying their best to be at their absolutely most polite with me. They really are trying to persuade me. And I think if I was a different kind of person, and I was sort of the more aggressive type, and if I was out there challenging people and making ponage videos and aggressive response videos, I mean, I've never actually made a response video. I have made videos about topics, but I never make videos about people. I haven't yet, anyway. I might someday, but I mean, I haven't yet. And I think if I was sort of more aggressive, and if I exuded a more hostile personality type, people would feel that they have license to come at me that way. But then people don't, and I think it's because it's like good manners. It's really hard to be rude to someone who's just been nice to you and smiling at you and sort of, treating you fairly and nicely in a public place. It's hard to sort of, return rudeness. It's easy to be rude to somebody out of the blue, but when they've just been nice to you, it's very hard. It disarms you, and I think that, because I'm in hangouts and shows and stuff like that, and my own videos, I'm fairly laid back. I think people don't want to lunge at me so much. So there's a consequence to sort of seeing things the way I do, but I mean, I have to say it's also self-rewarding, and that the pressure that I get back from people is actually quite gentle. People are really quite civil to me. Now, it's possible that the most strident and the harshest people who really think that Aussie is just such a big pussy, we don't need one, like I mean, I've been called a collaborator, and I give people passes and all kinds of things like that. Accommodationist. That was the other one. Thank you. Like I've heard those things said about me, but they've also been said to me. But when they were said to me, they were said in the nicest possible way. Like, hey Ozzy, don't you think maybe it's just a little bit, accommodationist of you to, that kind of thing, and then I have a discussion with them.
But also, you welcome that. You welcome that because of the discussion you can have about it afterwards. And I kind of see Mike approaching the kind of disagreements that you're talking about in the same way. I think I've seen a handful of videos from Mike where he just posts like, "Hey, so and so said something that was contrary to what I said, and it really made me think." And then he spends like 7 minutes explaining what how his position has changed. So
yeah, that goes a long way to making people want to approach you a certain way. I mean, it's possible to have a relationship with someone that's poisoned, and then there's nothing that can be done really. It's almost impossible to remediate a relationship that's gone really sour. So you can have enemies. It happens to people. They make enemies, and there's just no getting out. And this person will not let up. They won't stop hounding me. That hasn't happened to me, but I mean, it happens to people, and then they decide, I'm not gonna retaliate, and then the other person just won't let up, and then you just have to put up with the nuisance,
Yeah.
But I mean, Mike, because he changes his mind and he's open and stuff like that, I think people really respect that. I really respect that about Mike. I love it when I see people able to change their minds, It's funny. I don't change my mind much. At least not in my videos very much. But how readily you change your mind has a lot to do with how much you're willing to think out loud in public and go through the thought process publicly. I don't do much of that. I don't think out loud very much. I have a hard, in my videos, that's not what I really do. And Mike experiments with ideas. And so,
Yes.
he's not quite as entrenched in his positions. Well, no, but that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that takes courage. I actually
That's
don't
great.
have that kind of courage. I feel a little too timid to do that.
So I'm going to take this opportunity to start bringing in a couple more of the comments that have been made, and some of them I'm just going to say because I think they're hilarious. But there are a couple genuine questions that have come up that we kind of need to address. We really do. So one of the funny things that have been posted, Jackie Black. I'm checking you out, Jackie Black. 14 minutes ago, he says, it needs more drama. Butcher some theist or something. That was good.
All right, I'll get the chainsaw.
Yeah.
Gonna make fun of Mike for having shaved his beard off.
Oh no, stop it. Can't argue with a man who goes clean shaven. And then Augustin Camus said something really interesting, like the notion of an us, quote unquote, starts the path towards group mentality. So I must have used the word us, or maybe one of us did. I'm assuming it was me, in explaining something. So I think that's what he's addressing. There is no us, he says.
I'd like to weigh in on that too.
There are. Let me finish the quote real quick. Oh man, it just refreshed and threw it down at the bottom. There is no us. There are only I's. I, not E-Y-E, but I as in the letter I. I's gathered together. Almost necessarily, you will venture into the issue of orthodoxy and orthopraxy, that is dogma. I call bullshit out. I don't care who is spewing it. All right, Mike, what do you have to say about that?
Well, that's I think the essence of who I am. Is I definitely am kind of a lone wolf, and I appreciate the value of a community of like-minded people sort of gathering towards a common goal. But I'm definitely very much, hopefully, I would prefer to be sort of rogue and go on my own. And I tend to have actually a lot of friction with convention. And so I dealt with this early in my YouTube, I haven't even been on YouTube for a year, but early when I started making videos, I made a couple of videos where I was treading, I felt, on some thin ice with what I view as my viewership, my subscribers, and I thought, oh, they're not going to like this, and I kind of voiced that in the videos, and people say, what are you talking about? Just say your deal, and I realized that that's what I need to do, and so there's definitely going to be some content probably coming up in the future that a lot of people are going to disagree with, and I've just come to realize the value in that is the post-video discussion, which I really, really treasure. But I do agree. I think I have no desire to become part of the herd, the lemmings, or forming some sort of suddenly out of the ashes comes new dogma. I'm not interested in that at all. So I would hope that we're all individual thinkers, and that we're all, even if we're working together, that we're still I's, and that means we need to be prepared to challenge one another, even if it's in a nice way, just challenging with ideas, or as we were talking about before, challenging by getting, really working hard to get someone back on the rails if we feel they've gone way, way astray, and be prepared to have our minds changed too. Maybe we're the one who's gone astray.
Excellent. And so on that same note of dogma, I'm going to throw it back to you, Ozzy, with this comment from this little dialogue between Jack Ketch and Rictus Gate from 10 minutes and 2 minutes ago. So Jack says, doesn't the idea of policing a community open up the possibility of inspiring dogmatism within that community? To which Rictus Gate said, there was something that was niggling at the back of my mind about this topic. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, it's an excellent point.
Ozzy.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. And then just a quick thing about what Augustin Camus said. I happen to believe in us and them. I think it's okay to talk about us and them. And all we mean by that is those of us who have certain ideas in common. You don't have to vilify and demonize people who belong to them. I don't think vilification is inevitable. I don't believe that. I don't think I vilify the people I disagree with. I don't think I demonize them. I think I'm able to be intellectually charitable to them much of the time. Not all the time. I screw up. I slip up. Sometimes I just don't know how to do it. But you don't. It's not inevitable. You can do it. If you find yourself unable to do it, it's really for want of trying. It can be done. People do it all the time, on both sides. There are sort of people who are open and charitable. There was a fellow, Jason Trivium, who he's a Christian of a kind of I don't know, very conservative evangelical Christian. And he made a bunch of videos where he was actually arguing, how an atheist could argue against presuppositionalism. He's not a presuppositionalist, but he's not an atheist either.
Right,
He stopped making YouTube videos. He's turned to blogging now, regrettably, because I really liked the cut of his jib. But I mean, people can do this. This was a guy who just, he wasn't vilifying people, and I don't think we have to either. So I don't think it's inevitable. With respect to the policing, yeah, there's a worry there. There's a concern there. The word policing is the only word I know there that seems to fit. I haven't thought of a really good one that sort of captures the idea of sort of keeping one another polite and in line and sort of true to the sort of a commitment to greater rationality and skepticism. That's the us I'm talking about. I'm not talking about us, the atheists. I don't care about us, the atheists. I'm an atheist. Everyone in this room right now is an atheist. That's great, but I mean, if you're an atheist and you're completely irrational and a dogmatist and you're about vilifying other people, then I really don't have that much in common with you. It's just a coincidence that we're both atheists. That's not the us I'm talking about. I'm talking about the
yes.
This is the community I'm talking about. It's not the community of people who just happen to not believe in a God. Right? Who cares about that? That's not. I'm not going to die on that hill. It's not worth anything. You can be just as dogmatic while not believing in a God as believing in a God. So there's just less solidarity among people who don't believe in a God. It's like that talk about herding cats, right? But I don't. So that's not the us I'm talking about. So I think I don't want to sort of police the atheists and get them to think alike and believe in some atheistic creed. There's no such thing. I don't want there to be such a thing. I don't. That's why I don't like the idea of atheism plus. That they're sort of trying to pack in a lot more content to it. No, all I care about is the sort of repudiating dogmatism, embracing skepticism and the ideals of rationality and the norms of rational discourse. That's the us I'm concerned about. That's what I really want to promote. I think atheism takes care of itself as a kind of byproduct of that, slowly, over the long term, not in one generation, not in one person, in one mind. This is a battle of ideas, and these wars of ideas get fought transgenerationally, a little bit at a time. This is how things go. People slowly move out of one belief into another. And I don't think you need to demonize or vilify people. And so when you're policing people, all you're doing is you're saying, keep true to these ideals. Don't slip up. Don't abandon the principle of intellectual charity. Don't resort to any old argument will do kind of thinking just to get, argue against the other side. That's the kind of policing I'm talking about. There are people, I think, who are so bad at this. They discredit us and they disqualify us. And I think those people, we really have to marginalize them. I'm not going to get into naming names. I'm not friends with any such. Yeah, I'm not, and I got to say, I'm not friends with any such people. But I mean, there's some people who are so disastrously bad at this, who've never heard an argument against theism that they just didn't love. Those people, I don't have any truck with them, and I think people should just avoid them, and we should almost avoid talking about them. Just forget about them. They're irrelevant. You just marginalize them. You don't have to, make all kinds of videos denouncing them. You can if you want, but I mean, that just adds fuel to their fire, right? That just animates them. It galvanizes their resolve, and they just, you're literally motivating them to do more. People just kind of get people who are ignored on YouTube. They lose interest. They stop making videos. They get tired of talking into the void and hearing nothing back.
Well, I can't say that I disagree with anything that you've said in the past minute or two, Ozzy. So I'm actually I'm going to keep this short and sweet. We addressed the very question we have, and Mike, I think the answer to the main question you seem to be asking, which was, is there a place for all of us in this lexicon of dialogue, or in this environment of dialogue about religion or lack of religion, or even just civil discourse, period. The answer is yes. You know what I mean? A loud, full-throated, yes, there is room for this. And I'd say there's not only just room for it, room that we have to stake out and protect. There's a thirst for it.
Definitely there is, yeah.
Yeah, the acrimony.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say the acrimony and the vitriol, all the venom that gets spewed, keeps a lot of people out of these discussions. I was one of these people. I for years watched YouTube videos and participated in forums. I mostly read forums. I participated on IRC, but you know, I never wanted to sort of get into the whole YouTube thing and actually posting on forums very much, because things were so vitriolic, and I just didn't want to. I felt I was going to get dirty doing it. And it's not because I thought I was above it. I just thought it seemed fairly fruitless. And I don't know exactly what changed my mind, but I decided I wanted to inject myself into this this conversation. But it's amazing how many people like to talk to people like Mike and me, and who are not, you know, the most strident forces out there. You know, yeah, those people have you know, bigger channels and more views and you know, bigger followings and stuff like that. But I mean, there's a ton of people out there that want to interact and have these kinds of conversations. And if there's somebody out there modeling it, then, you know, I think you're going to create elbow room space for people who are interested in having a more moderate, level-headed civil discourse about these things. And I think that level of discourse is actually what changes minds more. You know, I think you're more likely to move a person from fundamentalism out of fundamentalism into sort of a more modest and sober, reflective theism, and then maybe you can even move them all the way out of that if you know. But you don't have to be trying to always rip someone out of their views and put them in another view and then shame them if they don't succumb to your brilliant argument. You know, it doesn't work that way. That's not how people change their minds anyway.
And based on the comments that are being thrown down in the comment section, people get it. You know, the people that are watching, at least, the people that are commenting, at least, they are undoubtedly appreciating the fact that we're trying to just, you know, move the conversation forward.
Well, presumably the most strident people aren't going to be watching this necessarily.
If this is true.
I think the value is...
I just need to let you know real quick that my phone is thermonuclear right now. It has been blowing up since the beginning of the show. Either with text messages or Google Plus messages or emails. I just got a Google Hangout invite from somebody. So people must be digging what's going on, because my phone is thermonuclear. So like I said, I didn't want to extend this into a backslapping session, but I know, Mike, you had something to say, and I want to make sure that you get it out.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo, so here we are with backslapping, echo something that Ozzy had said, which is modeling the behavior that you want, right? And so, you know, we can do this with parenting, we do this in our relationships, we do it with friends, and I think it's important to do it in this online community, and that's something that I thought a lot about before I started making videos, is what do I want my persona to be? And of course, I wanted it to be who I am anyway, so I just thought, you know, you just got to be authentic and do your thing. And hopefully, I had sort of set a level for myself. I thought, you know, if I get a couple hundred subscribers, then I'll maybe keep going. And if I don't, then obviously what I'm doing doesn't resonate with people, and I'll just shut her down. But I do think that it's really important to model the behavior that you want to see. And then hopefully, if you attract enough people via that method, it's a confirmation that you're onto something, that you're on the right track.
Awesome. Ozzy, are there any final thoughts that you'd like to contribute?
Yeah, well, with respect to different kinds of views, like people come to this online community to discuss theism and atheism and all this stuff with different agendas, and not everyone wants to talk philosophy or science. Not everyone wants to, you know, some people just want to mix it up. Like some people just like a good fight, you know, and I can appreciate that. I mean, I've been there and done that myself. It's fun, and you know, but and I think there's actually some room for that. There's some room for sort of parading stupidity and irrationality. You can put stupid on parade. I see it happens on some shows. I think that's okay. That's okay. It's important for people to see what's out there. Look how crazy a person can be. Look how deranged a person's moral position can be by their religion, for instance, right? And people on the other side want to do that. They can do that and pick the sort of the sterling examples of stupidity by atheists too. They can do that. That's fine. And someone like Sci 10 Atheist, okay? I mean, that is brilliant satire, and whoever that person is, this person is making videos that, I mean, right down there in the gutter and in the muck, laughing at people and ridiculing. But there's room for satire. Satire is different. Satire does not pretend to be civil discourse. It doesn't pretend to be high-minded politics or anything like that. But when you're sort of trying to promote rationalism and skepticism, and purporting to be such a person yourself, well then, you can't be doing that thing at the same time. That's a different end. That's a different objective. Satire is trying to sort of shine a light on something ridiculous. So there's room for that. I think that's good. And to the credit of whoever Sci 10 Atheist is or whoever they are, they don't just pick on the religious people. They sort of are able to laugh at the people on the other side, who are atheists, and so that's all good. I think that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem though when people really are into vilification and demonization of people and adopt any old argument will do approach. That I think completely discredits those of us who are interested in rationality and skepticism. They make us look stupid, and I've got no time for them. I think that those people have to be marginalized. They should be ignored. If someone wants to, if someone really is out spoiling for a fight and wants to go after such a person, that great. My own disposition, my own temperament is not like that, but some people are like that. That's where we should, some people should be doing that. I think that's good if they do. Anyway, I think I'm repeating myself now.
No, like I said, I haven't disagreed with the thing that you've said, so you've been speaking my mind, but articulating it better than I ever could. So, Mike, unless there's anything that you would like to contribute as a final comment.
No, I think we've articulated it here. I think yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, because so I think that we've only spent about 30 minutes talking about it, and maybe this will be a nice, concise little show that people will want to watch over and over and over again. So I'm gonna sign off. For the people that have been watching, thank you very much. For the people that have been listening, and I don't mean just putting this on in the background as something else that's going on. The people that have been really listening, thank you. The people that have been commenting in the comment section, thank you. And I'm going to sign off saying this. If anybody who is watching would like to have a post-show hangout, I encourage it to keep this conversation going, and please invite me. I might only be able to hang out for a little bit, but keep the conversation going. But I'm going to cut this show short. So, Ozzy, is that something you would be interested in?
Yeah, sure. I can stick around. I've got half a beer left, so.
Oh, okay. And what about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm game for a little bit if anybody does want.
Okay. So, if somebody wants to get a Google Hangout going on, continuing this topic of conversation, which is about maintaining personal integrity, policing our own quote unquote, is there a place for all of us that? Keep going.
I was just going to say, especially if they want to challenge the notion.
Yeah.
Let's get dirty. Indeed, that would be fun. That would be a super fun conversation. So, if you're going to do that, please inform Mike, Ozzy, and myself of where that hangout is going to be, and we will do our best to contribute what we can. All right, everyone. Good night.
Good night.